Hi, my friend. How are we doing? It's Ty Hicks, results coach and national influence and leadership trainer. This week we are talking all about how to communicate powerfully and how to ethically influence individuals so that we can become more powerful communicators and influencers, delivering our message for good to contribute to others in the world. So today what we're going to be zeroing in on is how to build rapport with anyone, how to develop that initial connection where all of a sudden there's a chemistry between you and somebody else, where you can move the conversation wherever you want to take it. You can direct things into a particular way. You can lead somebody down a path of being sold on a product if that's something that you're trying to do. You can deliver a message powerfully. You could secure a donation for an organization, or simply you could just be having a conversation. Maybe you're listening to this video today because you just want to improve your relationships. Maybe you want to develop more friendships. You want to have a more deeply enriching relationship with your loved ones or your family. This will show you some of those essential key skills and strategies you need to know in order how to click with other people. That's the really important bottom line that we're going for today. So let's talk for a minute about what the hell is rapport in the first place. I mean, in the world of learning how to become an effective influencer, the word rapport is kind of a buzzword. And what I really want to do is unpack what rapport means. Rapport means, in essence, responsiveness. So for example, have you ever had a situation where you're talking to somebody, you're sharing a story with them, but you can tell that they are just not listening to you at all? Maybe their eyes are, glancing over your shoulder. Maybe you can tell they're just kind of thinking about something. Maybe you can tell they're just waiting for their turn to respond, and they're just kind of formulating what their response is, but they're not in tune with what you're really saying. Well, that would be an instance in which you are out of rapport with somebody. They don't have rapport with you, or they won't really quickly anyway, because you can tell they're not giving you the time of day, and you don't have rapport with them because they're not listening to what you have to say. You haven't properly established rapport with them. Now, at the same time, I'm sure you've also had an experience where you're talking to somebody and you both are deeply engrossed in the conversation. You both are totally present to one another. It's almost as if the entire outside universe has completely disappeared. It's just you and the other person, and you both are treating each other as if you're the only people in the world, and you're just totally listening. You're on the edge of your seat about what they're saying, and vice versa. Have you ever had an experience like that? Well, that would mean that you were in rapport. In fact, you were in deep rapport. Now, you can have rapport if you're a speaker to an audience. You can have rapport one-on-one with individuals. You can have rapport in small groups, team meetings, right? Being able to establish rapport is a skill that you've got to exercise on a daily basis. And so learning how to do this effectively is certainly worth our time. And it's a very important part of becoming a better communicator and just better human being overall. So that's the first thing that I really want you to understand is rapport is responsiveness. It means, is the person responding to you? Because if you do not have that established, if you're trying to direct the conversation in any particular direction, you're never going to be able to do that unless you've got rapport. I mean, think about it. If you were trying to sell a prospective customer on a product, how could you possibly close a sale if they're not even listening to what you have to say? Maybe they're kind of hearing what you're saying, but if they're not really listening to what you have to say, if you've not developed real rapport with them, then you're at a loss. You have to do this before you do anything else in the vein of ethically influencing another person. So it's a very critical piece of the process. All right, so let's talk about how to actually do it. Now, one of these first things that we've got to talk about in terms of building rapport is you've got to stop focusing on yourself in your conversations. And I really want to have a moment of accountability here with you. How often when you're talking to somebody, are you not listening to what they're saying, but instead you're just waiting for your turn to speak? That's a very, very difficult thing to do and then expect that somebody's going to have rapport with you. It's just not going to happen. Two people talking at each other, neither one of them hearing what the other person says, and then both people just waiting for their turn to speak, that's not a conversation. Okay? A real conversation means that you're giving them the time of day, you're shutting off your brain for a minute so that you can truly listen to what they have to say. This is also going to be important if you want to ethically influence them, because they may tell you something that is so important for you to pick up on and remember and address and use and acknowledge later down the line. And if you're just waiting for your turn to speak, you won't even hear it. So it's important for that reason as well. But if you want to establish rapport with somebody, what you've got to do is stop caring about appearing to be right. Stop caring about appearing to be in control of the conversation. Just stop, okay? Just focus on the other person. Before you do anything else, just earnestly listen. And this is easier said than done. You might think that you're really good at this, but I guarantee you've got an area to improve on in this. But if you do this, then you will induce a natural form of reciprocity with the other individual. And that's what's really powerful about this. Because if somebody can tell that you are really listening to what they have to say, they are going to give you the reciprocal courtesy of listening to what you have to say as well. So this is fundamental. Make sure that you get out of your own head and feel what the other person is feeling as they're communicating with you. Really take it upon yourself to put yourself in their shoes as much as you possibly can. Pour your energy into listening to them, and that will naturally induce rapport at a very, very deep level. That's going to get the other person leaning into what you have to say when it is your time to speak. Now, once you've actually gotten them initially leaning into what you have to say, another keen way that you're going to be able to establish rapport with somebody else is through a process we call matching and mirroring. So you might think that this doesn't make a difference, but it really does. What you want to do is pay attention to how somebody carries themselves and how they communicate. And if you can match and mirror how they communicate, at least to some extent, you will naturally fall into rapport with somebody. So for example, have you ever been talking to somebody and on the phone, let's say it's a telemarketer or something like that, and you can tell that they're like a super, super fast talker compared to you? Immediately there's kind of a disconnect of rapport between the two of you, because the fast talker doesn't talk like you do, and they similarly are feeling like you talk slow compared to them. And so there's kind of a natural friction between your communication. Similarly, maybe you've talked to somebody where you're like, can you please just get to the freaking point? And they're just rambling, or they've got a drawl about them, or they're such a slow communicator that you can't even really relate at a basic communicative level. Have you ever had an experience like this? So what I want you to pay attention to is how somebody else communicates and how you can kind of naturally match and mirror them. Now, I'm not saying, clone them, okay? But if you can adjust your pace, your cadence of speaking to match theirs, then it will naturally get them that much more interested in what you have to say, because it will avoid any friction points in the communication process. So that's what we call matching and mirroring from a tonality perspective. Now you can also do this from a body language perspective, okay? So if somebody is leaning back comfortably in their chair, you may want to lean back comfortably in your chair as well. Because believe it or not, it does make somebody else feel more at ease. It makes them feel like they're talking to somebody that understands them. And for some kind of reason that we're not really able to understand at a conscious level, it just makes them care about what you have to say at that deeper of a level. So match your body posture to somebody else in keen ways, and I promise you, you're going to deepen your rapport with somebody else. Now, you might be worried that somebody's going to catch on to what you're doing, but that's not going to happen. No one's going to go, would you stop matching and mirroring me? No one is going to get a clue of what it is that you're doing, okay? And you don't need to do it at such a super detailed level, but if you notice that somebody communicates with their hand, they're very expressive, they're very alive, and they're jumping around, and they've got a lot of energy, you need to get outside of your comfort zone and bring your energy level up, because otherwise they're going to think you're just a bore, okay? But if you're talking with energy and you're using gestures, etc., this person now thinks they found somebody like them. That's what it means to have rapport, okay? And they're going to listen to what you have to say at a much deeper level. So even though this may seem like pseudoscience or like a little weird, I'm telling you it works. And as soon as you apply it, you're going to see how powerful it is. Now, another huge strategy that you need to use in order to induce rapport with people is to use what we call positive constructive communication. So, for instance, have you ever been excited about something and you wanted to share with somebody and you told them about it and they just kind of said, oh, that's cool, and they didn't really acknowledge anything beyond that. They just kind of gave you the surface level acknowledgement, but they didn't ask you anything more about it. And you probably got this sense of feeling like, wow, that's it? Like, that's all? You don't even care? You know, that's a frustrating experience for human beings to have. However, you've probably also had an experience where somebody has probed and asked you questions about something you were talking about that you didn't even think was that interesting, but they seemed to find a whole lot of interest in it. And then all of a sudden you were realizing, like, wow, this person really cares what I have to say. And then again, the natural reciprocity was induced, so you naturally cared about what they had to say. So when we talk about using positive, constructive communication, what we mean is, don't just blindly acknowledge what people tell you. You need to read into it a little bit, and you need to ask them. You know, if somebody tells you, man, I really had kind of a, crummy day. Oh, why was it crummy? What happened? Well, I mean, it just kind of started off because, Linda came into the office and she was frustrated, and, I was really proud of this project I just completed, but she didn't even seem to think it mattered at all. Oh man, that's really such a bummer. Do you think that she just had a bad day too, or do you see that this is something that's happening with her on a regular basis? Yeah, I don't know. I think she'll probably come around. She just seemed a little off today, but tomorrow I think I'll be better. I'll probably have a conversation with her. So using positive, constructive communication by asking and probing, you literally get the other person to talk more about themselves. And that's going to make them feel better about the conversation. The person who talks the most is going to feel the best about how the conversation went. So your goal is to not be the person who talks the most. Probe, ask for questions. Do not be jumping the gun to talk about yourself. Instead, make it a priority to talk about them. And they will naturally then reciprocate their attention towards you. And if you choose your words carefully and wisely, then they will be leaning in and listening to those words. And if you choose them in the appropriate way, you can strategically guide the conversation where you need it to go. So use that positive constructive communication. And by the way, this is a fantastic strategy with your relationships as well. Your romantic relationships, they want to share with you. They want to know that you care about what they care about. So use positive constructive communication, because there's nothing worse than when somebody tries to share something and they feel like their partner is completely unacknowledged it. It's not a priority for them to understand how you feel about it. All right. Another very important strategy that's going to enable you to develop rapport, not just in a single conversation, but over a long term, is you need to have a high goodbye standard. So what I mean is, what level of energy are you letting people leave the conversation with? You don't want to have the energy at a high level at one point in the conversation and then drop it to a low level right as you leave. You want to end the conversation on a high point. You want them to walk away from the conversation going, yeah, that guy, that gal, they really get me. They really understand. I'm excited to see them again. I'm excited for that follow-up call they told me about. That's what you want to have. That's how you carry rapport from one conversation into another conversation, so that when you do send that follow-up email, when you do send that follow-up call, when you do meet them for the second time to close the sale, your rapport is already high. They already left the previous conversation excited for the next one. And that's how you tee yourself up for a successive long-term relationship that becomes fruitful from a business perspective, or that simply deepens every day from a romantic or familial perspective, depending on the relationship that you're cultivating. So always have a high goodbye standard. Maybe you have a joke that you leave them with. Maybe you just thank them again. Maybe you just sincerely get present with them, give them an earnest handshake, pat them on the shoulder, whatever is appropriate for that person. Make sure that when you leave, they don't want you to leave, okay? That's what you really want to have as a high goodbye standard. So I hope you found this valuable. We're talking all this week about how to become a more effective communicator. So my next video I'm sending to you is specifically on how to handle any objection. No matter what objection you have, if you're trying to sell something, if you're trying to secure a donation, if you're trying to get somebody to join a cause, if you're trying to hire somebody, if you're trying to, persuade your partner as to what movie you want to go out and see for the weekend, whatever objection it is that you have, I'm going to show you a foolproof formula for how you handle those in any situation. So stay tuned for that. I hope today's video was powerful for you. I hope you can use this. Go out there and build rapport with some people today. Move more powerfully through life by utilizing these strategies to become a more effective communicator. Live with purpose, and I'm so excited to talk to you again soon. Take care, my friend.